All right. Thank you very much, Ibrahim Hamidu, for that background report. And to get our conversation going, let me introduce here in the studio Major General Emeka Onumajuru, Chief of Training and Operations at the Defense Headquarters. It's a pleasure to welcome you.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right. We have also been joined here by Majid Dahiru, who is a newspaper columnist and public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Also here for the conversation is Patrick Agbambu, a public safety and security expert. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let me begin with the general in the house. What do we know as at today? There's been a lot of back and forth. We're making some progress, and then it looks like we're not. What do we know at the moment about crude oil theft and the battle to retrieve Nigeria's oil wealth from oil thieves?
Thank you very much. I think first we'll all understand the importance of the oil sector in the national economy to the extent that it's the mainstay of the economy. And that, I think, explains the criticality of ensuring that our oil installations are well protected. You're correct. Crude oil theft is ongoing, but I want to believe that it's a problem that has been there for a very long time. But the issue now is that the scale and dimension is on the increase to the extent that it begins to affect the national economy and also the well-being of the people in the Niger Delta, considering the environmental implication. But much is being done as at today to ensure that this stops. And I can rightly confirm that the level of crude oil theft now is very low, because for the past 3 months there has been a gradual increase in the daily production rate. I'm sure NNPC will be able to give the data, but there's a sustained increase because of ongoing operations to ensure that the key pipelines, say Trans-Niger Pipeline, Trans-Ramos Pipeline, Trans-Escavos Pipeline, are all safe. I wouldn't say that the problem is we're out of the woods. We're not out of the woods. We are still there, but progress is being made.
What has become of the 2.5, the infamous 2.5, is it 2.5 miles pipeline?
When you talk about 2.5 miles pipeline, that is the main pipeline now.
No, the one that is used to siphon oil.
You see, the siphoning oil comes from various dimensions. Various dimensions. You have those that break the pipelines. You have those that attack the pipeline wellheads. You have those that even go onshore to steal crude oils. So it comes in different dimensions. But the important thing is that the key pipelines, the Trans-Niger Pipeline, is where most of this activity is being done, because all the other pipelines feeds into the Trans-Niger Pipeline. And for some time now, that has been the focus. Keep the Trans-Niger Pipeline safe. Once that is safe, then the amount of theft will be reduced, and that is what is happening.
Major General, from your experience, being a part of this operation, trying to safeguard our natural resource, what would you say is responsible, for crude oil theft? And then, would you say that, these thieves are being aided?
Yeah, I think it's first is sheer criminality by organized criminal groups. We're a lot of ecosystem made up of those with the technical know-how to break these pipes and connect, transporters that move these pipes, even those that sell. It's a huge criminal ecosystem. Now, when you look at it, those that are involved too, the products, illegal refined products, they go far and wide in this country. Some of them up to Lagos area, you have them being sold. So that is the ecosystem we are dealing with. But the reasons why it is difficult to tackle, first is the terrain. The terrain is very challenging. Swampy, high dense areas, forested. So even when you know something is happening, it still takes a little bit of having that capability to reach there. Apart from the terrain, even the local knowledge. The oil bunkers have the local knowledge of the terrain, where these pipelines are. So it sort of makes it easier for them to be able to perpetrate their crimes. I wouldn't say communities are involved, but there are some elements of community support, some communities, in the sense that maybe the communities don't volunteer information on what is happening within their community, where these pipelines pass. That's also another factor that makes it quite difficult. And the proceed, wherever you have a criminal network that the proceed is high, that in itself is an incentive. Now, look at it against the laws. The laws are also not stringent enough. So that level of deterrence, knowing that if I'm caught doing this, I might end up in jail for 15 years, it's not there. So even when arrests are made, people are given a slap on the wrist. So in itself, it doesn't deter people from going into this level of criminality. So we still need to look at the laws. Even the infrastructures, the pipelines, some of them are very old, been there since 60s. They also need to be upgraded. The technology to monitor the pipelines are not yet there. Metering is just of recent, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they commenced metering. So we also need to meter these points to be able to know what actually do we produce, what do we sell. If nothing else, it helps you to build a bigger database on what is happening. So that metering that has been ordered by Mr. President, I think it's in order, and it will be part of the solutions to addressing this issue. Now, issues of oil wellheads, those that are not being used for whatever reason, what is the security regime around it? Are they properly protected to the extent that people, unauthorized people, do not have access to them? So we also need to look at that. Fiscalization. Some personnel of the Nigerian Navy have been trained for fiscalization. The essence is for them to be able to be deployed to these terminals, but that have not been done. Now they are doing some form of refresher training to enable them to deploy to those terminals. If that is done too, it will improve the entire accountability in the process, and maybe we'll begin to have much more.
But talking
solutions.
about accountability and more solutions, do you ever think Nigeria would get there? Like you rightly stated at the beginning, that crude oil theft has been on for a very long time. And, there's, in some quarters, it has been discussed that maybe the high and mighty are involved in this, because from what you've said, it's a huge network. And we know that ordinary Nigerians cannot be involved in such, kind of activity. So when I talked about being aided, you mentioned the community. But do you think that the reason why it's not going down, despite the efforts of security operatives and even the government, could be that there are some interests?
Well, I want to believe that the various programs being introduced to address this issue will ultimately positively impact on issues of accountability. I just talked about metering, for instance. It's like you're selling something, you cannot exactly say what quantity am I producing, what quantity am I selling from point A or point B. So when you have metering, it brings much more accountability. When you have this fiscalization that involves maybe the armed forces personnel, it also gives you much more accountability. On our own part, too, we've been able to introduce a joint monitoring team among all the security agencies that have been deployed in the Niger Delta. The idea is for them to also monitor our own personnel. What are they doing? Are they being professional in whatever they do? We've also deployed a Joint Intelligence Fusion Center, also made up of the entire security agencies, to be able to understand how this criminal network operates, be able to provide actionable intelligence that will allow the troops to move. So when you add all these pieces together, you will see that they are all meant to improve that accountability process.
All right. Thank you very much, General. Let's keep you on hold at the moment. I understand that CSC Babawale Afolabi, who is National Public Relations Officer of the NSCDC, has joined us. Mr. Afolabi, thank you very much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning.
Now, let me just engage you straight up. The NSCDC has a mandate to protect, public assets. And I ask, why is it that it has been difficult through the years to protect the nation's pipelines from crude oil thieves?
Yeah, thank you very much, presenter. Well, like we all know that the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, we have a defined and well-spelled statutory mandate that is protection of critical national assets and infrastructure, which includes protection of pipelines, protection of electrical power installations, protection distribution of telecommunication gadgets, and amongst others, about tackling the issue of the day, that is tackling the crude oil theft in Nigeria. First, I want us to know that the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, under the leadership of our visionary and highly resourceful Commandant General Dr. Hamid Abubakar Haudi, MNR, he has mapped out formidable strategies in combating crude oil theft in our nation. And in all the 36 states of the Federation, we have a command, and we have a squad called the Anti-Vandal Squad, and they are highly trained and fully armed to combat menace of pipeline vandalism. So, but one thing I want us to know is that in the last 3 years, we've been able to arrest and destroy about 500 illegal bunkering sites and refineries. We dismantled everything. And apart from that, about 1,250 suspects, suspected oil theft, and their sponsors were being prosecuted as well, arrested and prosecuted. So we are doing and trying our best at the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. And aside that, the Commandant General, in his own wisdom, have to come up with another squad. They call them the CG Special Intelligence Squad. And this squad have been doing wonderfully well in order to create war against the oil theft and other economic sabotage. But some of the difficulties we are seeing, we are having is the area of synergy, and actually we've been doing wonderfully well, but we still have to do more. Security is a collective responsibility. Well, I know we have people we're working talking about sister agencies and some joint task forces that we are working with. I know at the Southeast we're having the Operation Python Dance. Yes, we work together with other sister agencies. And I remember in Niger Delta, we're having the Operation Niger Save and some other people that we're working with. This thing, just like what General has said, that it has been on for so many years. And what we are doing gradually is to just try and copy with the other sister agencies. And with what we are doing now, we can see this thing is now on a minimum page, and I believe very soon this thing will be a thing of the past. And also, we've been working more on our intelligence. Someone once stated, and I quote, that the distance between problem and solution is intelligence. Even before the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, before we start carrying rifle, we've been the work of our intelligence officers, can be overemphasized. So what we are doing now is trying to work more with the host community, especially the people in the area where we are having crude oil theft. And we noticed that these people, they are working in collaboration with the people carrying out this nefarious act. And the issue we're having with them is that they're not, working well with us. At the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, we have a cliche that is, when you see something, you say something. These people, they are not ghosts. And we security operatives, we are not miracle workers. We feed on information, so they don't give us prompt information. If they've been talking to us often, because most times when we go to this community, we do a kind of sensitization. We try to let them know the disadvantages of these environmental degradation. So we always talk to them, but we notice that because they were giving them stipends, they're giving them money, so they find it very hard to work with any security operatives. And we are even using this opportunity, just like I said, that we need to work more on sensitization and tell them the disadvantages and the bad effect of what they are doing in their various communities. And also, we notice that these youth is because they found nothing doing. I don't think maybe they have work they're doing and things are going on well with them. They won't do a kind of collaboration with all these bad people. So what we indulge in, and we know actually the governments are really trying, but we all need to work together because security is a collective responsibility. For instance, these youths that have nothing doing, if the government can create a kind of stipend for them, maybe something they are having every month, they will just, they won't be able to, they won't try to involve themselves in this nefarious act. For instance, in the Europe, there's this group, they have this potential, they can sing, but they didn't have job. But the government is giving them stipends. And I remember the government is giving them £40 monthly. And with that £40, they were able to use it judiciously to the extent that the name of the group is UB40, which means unemployed benefit with £40. So gradually, up in Nigeria today, everybody, in all over the world, everybody knows UB40. And I believe if the government can also do this in synergizing and working with all sister agencies to, this will really help. And the last one is stiff punishment. These people know that actually, if they're being caught, maybe you'll be given maybe 3 years or 4 years imprisonment. If they're being caught, if they are given stiff punishment, maybe life imprisonment.
All right, stringent punishment, what you're advocating. Of course, the Major General already mentioned that, that the laws are also too weak when it comes to crude oil theft. Thank you very much, Babawale Afolabi, CSA. We'll get back to you, but let's come back to the studio now and hear from Patrick Agwambu, her public safety and security expert. Listening to the Major General and, of course, the CSA, Afolabi, talk about information, that they need information to function. And then you want to look at the kinds of network involved in this oil theft. It's a very well-coordinated network. There are pipelines constructed. There are vessels that come into the country, take this away. So this is not, I don't know. I want to find out from you. Do you really think that information is what is required to tackle crude oil theft, or you think that there are other things that could, assist in dealing with this matter?
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if we remember the last time we were talking this topic here in this studio. I was sitting down where the general was sitting, and I remember that I pointed out two major problems. That is one, the metering. In fairness, we do not know how many crude oil we are producing in the country today. And that is the truth. Whatever we're saying is based on what the NNPC feeds the nation, what they say. Nobody can verify that. The metering issue has been going on. Orders have been given by the president for so many. The previous government did so, this current government also have done so. People have been trained, but there is reluctancy on the side of the NNPC, which is the major operator and the coordinator of all the other joint companies. So that is one problem. So we cannot tell how much we are producing, so we can't even tell how much is being taken away. I also pointed out the other time that, yes, we know that the security forces are trying their best in controlling pipeline vandalism. But what is the significant number of that is being stolen through the busting of the pipelines compared to what is being lifted from the terminals?
Vessels.
Where the vessels come, a vessel can come with a permission to lift about 10,000 liters. And it's coming with the ship itself, the vessel has a capacity of 100,000. And it's been loaded. Who confirms how many is being loaded in that vessel? That brings to the issue about physicalization that the general has also pointed out. We need to call a spade a spade. We need to be able to address this issue. There are many instances where a vessel that has a permit, yes, they come with permits. They come with approval. But who can confirm to Nigerians what is being loaded? We need to have an alternative source of confirmation so that transparency can be recorded.
Some have also accused the security agencies of complicity in all of this.
Are they there?
Because like you said, it is not the ones that you tap with maybe hose and little pipes that is the issue. Yeah. It is the ones that are lifted. So is it easy to move things of that magnitude on our territorial waters without relevant security agencies knowing about it?
Okay, for instance, we have had instances. I always have presence in the Niger Delta area to confirm what we're saying. For instance, there have been so many vessels that have been arrested, and they will flash approval. Now, what is the capacity to find out, to compare what the approval says and what is the content? In some cases where the security agencies have found some discrepancies, they have also chase after these vessels. We have cases here, at least Nigeria has set an example in Africa that once there was a case that was successfully prosecuted. Again, political interferences pleaded for out-of-court settlement. It's on record in Nigeria here. So we need to be able to get this issue done, no matter what the security forces are doing. Yes, they have contracted private security companies to guide the pipelines. How well is that being done? Because, yes, the shallow waters, the general talked about local knowledge, which we'll talk in security. Okay, the terrain is quite difficult. So having a navy that operates in a higher water may not be able to meander through some of this. So the locals, the private company has that capacity expectedly to be able to monitor this. But how well are they doing it? Who is checking what they are doing? Let's leave what propaganda and publicity, media bliss, some of them are doing. But how well can we confirm all this? I'll tell you, last time I also said here, I have interacted with some of the people in some of these communities. And I believe that government till now have not done much in terms of buying these communities to understand that this is our commonwealth. That is why they can aid and support whoever is coming to do whatever illegal business in those places. They still see that this is our crude oil. About a week ago, somebody from that community was telling me, oh, we're talking about arresting people who are being caught with oil vandalism. It's our oil, Niger Delta oil. Minerals that are found in the north is only for them. But the ones in the south is for the public, for everybody. There's need for serious sensitization for the people to understand and buy this. Without this, they won't be able to provide that actionable intelligence that the general talked about. The information we're talking about will not come so that we'll be able to check even those smaller thieves, I could say. But the bigger thieves are there because they have international markets.
Are the bigger thieves not known?
Of course, they are known.
By who?
Of course, they are known because it's international syndicates. There are countries that rely on stolen crude oils from Nigeria. Because it's cheaper for them.
Of course.
There are countries, some of our neighboring countries.
So who are those who make it possible?
Now, this is where, in Nigeria today, it's one of the things I would say we have a lot of, there's no need for new, some people talk about strategies and all that. We have existing strategy for the security operatives. We have the West African surveillance system, which the Nigerian Navy are aware of. You can assess what is happening in the water. You can trigger off other water lines. And that is through the process that some of these ships are being arrested. But what I'm saying now is when they flash some of these documents, when you intercept them, when they flash it, what do?
You interrogate.
You interrogate. And the process of movement, there are so many of them. And yet, the political will is where we need to check.
Political will. Thank you very much for that point, Agambu. Let's find out from Majid Dahir what he thinks about this. You know, this is huge. We need to talk about this seriously. 437,000 barrels of crude oil per day is lost due to theft, vandalism, and other criminal activities. This is massive. And it's a daily occurrence. And like the Major General has said, it's been on for years. In your own view, you know, Mr. Agambu has talked about the fact that we have small thieves and big thieves. Maybe the small thieves are being caught once in a while. But what is the issue, you know, with dealing with the major thieves, you know, in this country? Why can't we put a halt to this, you know, criminal element once and for all? What do you think the challenge is?
Okay, there are many challenges. Only when you talk about oil theft in the Niger Delta and other oil producing communities. But I think the good thing is the Nigerian state is beginning to overcome these challenges. The recent charge by the president to the chief of defense staff to the effect that he should coordinate all other sister security agencies to make sure that they bring a final halt, a final stop to oil theft in the Niger Delta seems to be yielding results. And so sometimes, yes, the challenges have been highlighted, the issues are out there, but in the past few weeks and months, we've seen a significant improvement in the quantity of crude oil that is produced and recovered, to the extent that I think in the month of June, the NUPRC reported that there was not a single case of oil theft in the entire country. And that is because of the effort of the armed forces, other sister security agencies, and of course the NNPC, that is like the backbone of Nigeria's oil and gas industry and infrastructure. I say this because there are gains we've recorded. Right now, oil production has increased from less than 1.3 million barrels per day to over 1.6 million barrels per day. And in fact, according to information available to some of us, the latest figure must be as high as 1.8 million barrels per day. And so they are steadily approaching their benchmark of 2.5 million barrels per day target. So, of course, apart from oil theft, you also need more investment to produce crude. But in areas of mitigating against oil theft, I think a lot is being done now. So my focus will be what is being done rightly and how it should be sustained. For example, the concept about metering and monitoring is one that I think that the NNPC itself has been able to substantially overcome, because they've acquired capabilities through their recently established command and control center. We are able to monitor the entire network of pipelines in the Niger Delta along the three corridors of East, West, and Central. The entire network of pipelines are monitored 24 hours of every day through consistent surveillance. There is nothing that is happening today along the entire network of our pipelines that is not monitored from the command and control center, for where they escalate, breaches to the armed forces. And the report we also get is that the armed forces have been very up in their game, because whereas they need patrol the waterways to ensure that anybody who has stolen crude does not get away with it into the international waters, the Air Force carry out, flying missions across hotspots that have been identified to take out illegal activities, and it is ongoing, while ground forces move in to destroy illegal refineries and aid the restoration of breaches or the recovery of violations of the pipeline. So far, of the 6,000 violations on our pipelines that aids oil theft, more than 5,000 have been recovered under the cover of the security of the armed forces by NNPC and its technical personnel. So this is where we are today. And that is because the political will appears to have finally, is now forthcoming. Because the president has said, look, I want to see the end of this problem. And I think that if this current effort is sustained, we might be talking about a post-oil theft era in Nigeria within the foreseeable future. So there's been improvement, and it's important we say this.
But you are talking about monitoring pipelines here and there.
Yes.
I think here, everybody seems to agree that the major theft is done with vessels.
Okay, let me
explain
that. Let me explain that. You can't steal crude oil through lifting of crude from the legal terminal. It's not possible. There's no documentation they can present. Let me tell you how crude oil is stolen. You see, you have a vast network of pipelines. So imagine 6,000 bridges on those pipelines. It will yield substantial amount of crude that are taken into local barges, and then they are sailed towards the sea. From where it is now bunkered into illegal vessels that are now loading. Now the problem is this: these illegal vessels, they usually turn off their navigational system because they know that they're illegal. They operate under the cover of darkness. And well, it will not be quite right to reveal the tactics that the armed forces are now using to detect vessels that their navigational systems are turned off.
But you have the right to tell us what the results are.
The result is that you have seen an upsurge in oil production from less than 1.3 to 1.8 million barrels per day, with zero report of oil theft in the months of June and July, according to the NUPRC. This is where we are. Now, I listened to also the issue of community support. Yes, it is important. And this is where we need to focus on the political leadership of the oil-producing states. You see, the level of misery, hunger, and poverty in Nigerian communities is unbearable and is unfair. And it's an opportunity for us to call on the governors of this state to please utilize the 13% revenue they're getting from this same resource to better the lives of the people, to the extent that they will now see that they have a stake in this infrastructure that gives them their daily bread. With that, they will invest their emotions, their sentiments, and their legitimacy in the Nigerian state and its infrastructure, oil and gas infrastructure, which is the backbone of our economy. So I think the major challenge here is we need to uplift the social conditions of the people in the Niger Delta. Otherwise, it will be easy for them to look the other way if they can get an alternative of living from these other illegal activities. But this responsibility is for the governors. If you look at the allocation from crude oil revenues, it is humongous going to this state. The people need to feel the impact of this revenue coming from their God-given endowment. As we put a charge before the state governors to say, look, do what other countries have done for you producing communities with the revenues you have. I mean, this practice of an average Nigerian governor having a personal ambition that he begins to work on from the first day in office as governor for 8 years without investing adequately in the human development capital of his own people is something that we must really, really discourage. Other than that, I can assure you that the charge of the president, the charge to the armed forces to end crude oil theft is yielding result, because the armed forces is up and running on this matter.
Right.
And like the general said, they are beginning to monitor their own men who are believed or suspected to be complicit with some of these undesirable elements. And a lot is being done in that regard. That is what we've seen by way of an upsurge in the quantity of crude we've produced over the past 3
Quantity
months.
of crude being produced has increased. Of course, we can see the numbers. Thank you, Majid Hero. But let's get back to Major General now. Yes, the quantity has increased, that is being produced. But we still know that some are still being stolen and illegal refining is still being done. I want you to tell us what your experience is like, about the illegal refining taking place in the Niger Delta, even right here, and then what is being done in that regard.
Thank you very much. I think first, like my friend said, clearly there has been an upsurge in oil production to that 1.8 million barrels per day. And it's actually based on the directive of Mr. President to the CDS to entirely coordinate all security operations in the Niger Delta to ensure that crude oil theft, illegal oil refinery is completely removed. Now, I think what we've done is to upscale the level of operation in the sense that you have much more men, say, in areas like the southeast, where you have also a lot of oil bunkering within Anambra, Imo State, and Abia State. There is a surge of military personnel to make sure that that is not happening. So to a certain extent, that area has been secured. And then also the Navy have been carrying out intensive choke point operations. Now it's very easy to siphon fuel, but definitely you need to pass through choke points using small cotonou boats and barges. So once you block all those choke points, like the military have done, so it becomes difficult for you to, even if you are successful in stealing the oil, how do you take it out? Apart from the choke points on the sea too, also there are new checkpoints on the key arteries into the Niger Delta and also out. So if you have been successful in taking it out, then the truck drivers and the vehicles are also searched. And you see that a lot of these vehicles will have an SOP really. If you're caught with stolen crude, the vehicles are bound immediately. No stories about it. Even on the high seas, if you're caught with tapping or stolen crude, the Air Force can immediately take it out. We know it has some implication, but that to an extent have also yielded some results, because on its own, it's a form of deterrence. Nobody wants to lose his car because he is caught with 20 sacks of illegal refined petroleum. So that is also working now. The illegal refining sites, I tell you, about 7,500 have been destroyed as at last month. 7,500 IRS. And the starity of the criminal group is really amazing. Now they also have some mobile refineries that can easily collapse the thing, move it to another location. So it's a problem that mutates. A problem that mutates. but the armed forces is up to the task. The level of destruction is high, and also the level of removal of illegal connections. About 5,500 to illegal connections have been removed. Of course, all this with the support of NNPC. I agree with him. NNPC have a clear view of all the pipelines. If you go to their monitoring room, you could be able to see in different dots, red, green, to show you what is happening. And now those informations are fed to the armed forces, who also responds to tackle the situations there.
If you say that the NNPC has a clear view of the pipelines, and all,
yes.
yeah. So what's now delaying the metering process of those pipelines?
Well, the metering is ongoing. I wouldn't speak for NNPC, but I know Mr. President has given a directive on it, and the contract for the metering has been awarded, so it's ongoing.
Now, a former governor, I had posed this question, to Mr. Bambo earlier. A former governor in the Niger Delta area once accused the GOC of running an oil theft syndicate. It's out in the air. It's not a secret. And that brings us to the question of the kind of personnel who are posted to the Niger Delta. For instance, whether at the level of the NSCDC or the military or the Navy, the information is that when you are deployed to the Niger Delta, it is considered a lucrative posting. Why is this so?
Well, I will beg to disagree with you. The armed forces remains, as an institution, very professional in the conduct of their duties. Now, the armed forces, like any other organization, can have one or two bad eggs. That is good enough, but what is the percentage of those bad eggs to overall strength of the armed forces? Are just negligible. And I just told you that the accountability process we are pursuing in the Niger Delta also includes our own personnel. That's why you have a joint monitoring team that has been set up to go around the Niger Delta and also monitor the activities of not just the armed forces, of the entire security personnel. Remember, the charge of Mr. President to the CDS is to take charge of the entire operation. So it's no more issue of this is Army or Navy or police or civil defense. No, all are collapsed under Operation Delta Safe. And this joint monitoring team goes around to see what everybody is doing. And in the Niger Delta, it might surprise you to know we have a standing court-martial. A standing court-martial means once you're found culpable, you're tried, and the case is dispensed. So that people know that this is a no-go area. If you do this, there are consequences, and that is working. I wouldn't say it's 100% success rate. Like I said, one or two bad eggs. But the bulk of the armed forces, the command of the armed forces remains most professional and accountable in the work that
they much talked about Tony Elumelu interview, recent Tony Elumelu interview, where he talked about the Bonny terminal, which is supposed to be getting 200,000 barrels per day, turning over less than 3,000 barrels per day. That gives a sense of what still happens within the Niger Delta.
In the past 1 month, the terminal factor of the crude pumped is roughly between 98 to 100%. You can check with NNPC. Terminal factor means when you pump this crude into the pipelines, what quantity did you pump? What quantity is coming out from the other end? 97, 98, 100% consistent for about 3 to 4 weeks. Verified.
Weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, let's pause you, Major General. Let's get to CSC Babawale Afolabi. I'm sure you heard how confidently Major General Emeka Onumajuru told us about, security operatives in the armed forces, who are securing, the pipelines and, of course, our resources in the Niger Delta. Can you say the same about the officials of the NSCDC? I ask this because when the Major General was talking, he talked about checkpoints. And when Nigerians hear checkpoints, you know that when those who are willing to play ball get to the checkpoint, they may be allowed to go. And those who do not play ball, of course, are the ones who are caught. Let us know. So far, in your records, the NSCDC, do you have officials that have, been tried, or if you like, taken out of service for any activity that supports oil theft in the Niger Delta?
Definitely. Out of every 12 disciples, there will always be a Judas. So we have. and they're already out of the service now, but I don't want to mention names because the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, we don't compromise. And we have a kind of cliche that is, we used to say collect, bribe, and die. Because if you are being caught, we don't, my Commandant General, Dr. Hamed Abubakar Howdy, MNI whoever, I didn't take it with levity. So and that's why you hardly see any of our personnel trying to involve in any of these nefarious acts. And just like the General rightly said, in all the flashpoints and all the pipelines all over the Federation, you see all our men there, doing their work hard. And at times, even if we don't, there are some intelligent officers, they don't wear uniform, but they are still there, do their job the way it's supposed to be. So that just like, to buttress what General said. Yeah.
Okay, it appears we are losing the connection to CSC Babawale. We'll get back to you when the connection to you is much more stable. But let me get back here to Patrick Abambo. Do you agree with the position of Mr. Babawale and the Major General that we're clocking almost 100% now? Because as of June, though he's talking about a few weeks ago, because as of June, instead of the 2.5 million barrels per day, which Nigeria is able to turn out as of 2011, it was about 1.3 in June 2024.
Yeah, thank you. I know that the armed forces are doing their very best. You can't take that away from them. Under the current Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Gwabi Musa, who I know so well, he was in the Niger Delta even as a lieutenant colonel, so he understands the terrain so well. So when that charge was given to him by the president, I was confident that there will be lots of improvement. And yes, there's significant improvement. But my point here is nobody is giving us alternative figure from what NNPC is giving.
Okay. Indeed,
that
because you can
all over the world for you to be transparent. There must be transparency in figures. That is the point. Yes, NNPC is trying. They can monitor. They can monitor it. They have a yes. I know about the center.
But is there a way to check NNPC itself?
Yes, that is what I'm talking about. And to check it is having these security services physically there. They are dragging feet. Just a few days ago, the NUPA ROC actually did a refresher call, which the general talked about. For years, some of the naval officers have been trained, but they were not accepted to be deployed. Just a few weeks ago, there's a refresher course now, including the customs officers and all that. We need to see them there. If when they see them there, I will believe about the figures.
Won't that also develop another massive syndicate? Syndicate involving the military, involving security agencies, the NNPC, and all of that. Won't that amount to another syndicate? But
that is a better, at the airports, at our international airports, you have the security services there. So you can verify the immigration, what they are talking about, people moving out, and from the DSS can also verify. But here, nobody else can tell us what is being done.
All right, let's get to Mr. Majid Dahiru. You said Nigeria is making significant progress. I want you to speak concerning the international oil companies operating in the oil-producing communities. Because there have also been reports that these international oil companies are also a part of this whole, crime. Yes. So let us know what you know about that.
IOC that has invested so much to de-risk an oil asset or an oil block cannot run to now steal its own properties. Oil theft has driven a lot of IOCs out of the Niger Delta. And that is why, in the past couple of years, less than 3% of investment in Africa in oil and gas industry came to Nigeria because of the difficult terrain, operational terrain, particularly as it concerns oil theft. So sometimes we tend to weave a lot of conspiracy theories around very simple issues. Look, oil theft is being done by criminal individuals who simply are trying to profit other people's investment and sweat. The IOCs are the major oil producers in Nigeria. They cannot turn around to also steal what they are producing. You can accuse the IOCs of not meeting up to the expectation of host communities of development in terms of clean up the environment after polluting the environment from all these activities and all that. But to accuse the ICC of stealing crude is something that I find a little bit not very realistic. And let me say this, they are partners with the NNPC, they are partners with the Nigerian state in exploiting or exploring our hydrocarbon reserves. So they're strategic partners. And they're also affected by oil theft. Even indigenous operators like Elumelu you mentioned are also affected. So they are all affected. And that's why they are all working together as a group to confront the common enemy of oil thieves that has made their investment not yielding profit. Because if you pump crude oil, for example, from one end, before you get to the terminal, probably 80% is lost to all of those breaches on the pipelines. But thankfully, why I'm making this point is, where we are today is that almost all of these breaches have been recovered. The NNPC, working with the armed forces and other security agencies, have tightened the noose around oil and gas infrastructure in the Niger Delta. This has yielded results by way of an upsurge in crude oil production. I'm saying we need to sustain this, and the advocacy now should be, how do we even improve on what is already achieved? Because also of the challenges we'll be talking about, I think they have somehow managed to overcome those challenges. And it is commendable. I mean, for the first time in our lives, we are seeing a commander-in-chief give a charge, and within a few months, we are seeing results from that charge given, because all hands are on deck. So it tells you that if there's a political will to do the right thing in this country, in every aspect of our national life, it will happen. So I think it is significant that we have recorded an increase from less than 1.3 million barrels per day to about 1.8 million barrels per day. And NNPC is on course to achieving 2.5 million barrels of production per day. So I'm saying that we need to now begin to highlight things that needs to be done to sustain this and make it better. And I hope and pray that this might be the last phase of this question around oil theft in Nigeria, given the effort we've seen so far. And one thing we need to do is, again, the political leaders of the Niger Delta states must begin to give back to the people that which is their due, so that they can invest their legitimacy in the Nigerian state enough to cooperate with security agencies to safeguard this infrastructure that is the backbone of our economy. The level of misery, you need to see a flash picture from the Niger Delta, and you compare that to other oil producing countries all over the world, and you see the contrast. So we need to resolve that problem of poverty, misery, and hopelessness in the Niger Delta. And the governors should be given this charge, because they have the resources to turn the lives of people around.
But some have said that, I agree with you to a large extent. Some have said also that the terrain makes development a bit difficult because of the swampy area in large parts of the Niger Delta. But however, most of the issues you have raised is why, it's why the PIA came to be.
Yes.
So why is the PIA not resolving the issues that it was meant to resolve?
You see, the PIA is just a law. The PIA set aside, I think, 3% or 2.5% of profits from operating entities. 3% to develop the host communities. Now, the problem is we've not seen enough investment in the Niger Delta because of this same problem. So now that the effort by the armed forces and other stakeholders is yielding results, hopefully we'll begin to see inflow of investments into the Niger Delta. For information, most of the IOCs have divested from their onshore operations and only operating offshore because of this same problem. So if the terrain is safe now for operations, and we to see new investments in the upstream, in the upstream sector of the oil and gas industry, we might begin to have operating entities that will now be able to have enough profit to set aside this 3% to complement the 13% derivation fund coming to the states, and what the NDDC and Mission of Nigeria is also able to provide. So, for the PI to have full effect, you need that environment to be secured adequately for investors to have confidence enough to come in. So, without investors, the PI, that aspect of the PIA cannot be activated, because the profit comes from the investors' profit. The tip comes from the investors' profit from his investment. So, if there are no investment, there are no profit, so the 3% cannot even be activated. So you need investment. That fund is not just existing because of the creation of the PIA. No, it's not existing yet. It is simply an anticipation that when operating entities come in and they are able to make profit, 3% should be set aside to develop the host community. You need that investment.
Does anything need to change with the PIA to make it work better?
I think they need to increase the threshold from 3% to 5%. I'm not going to
You know, it was a debate, actually. It was during the process of harmonization.
Yes.
I think the House approved, is it 5% and then Senate 3% somehow. It was when the joint committee sat that they decided to put it at 3.
At 3. So I think 5% should have been more reasonable.
But they are not even saying 3% at the moment. You're asking for 5%.
I'm saying the reason you're not saying 3% is because there are no investments there.
Anyways.
The existing investments have been divested. But once we secure this terrain today, and investments coming,
and we start seeing 3%, hopefully we can now improve it to 5%.
The reason is the optics. When the people of the community know that, okay, investment will bring 5% of their profit for our development, that might incentivize their cooperation with the Nigerian state to further secure the environment.
All right, thank you very much, Majid Dahiru. I'd like to get to Major General Emeka now. You know, the military is doing so much, like you have mentioned. Of course, we're seeing results here and there. I want you to speak to us about the challenges that, you know, the security operatives themselves face. You mentioned the terrain earlier, but away from the terrain, are there other issues, you know, being faced by the security operatives deployed to the Niger Delta to safeguard the pipelines?
Okay, we've talked about the terrain, which is a key problem. Not that we can't surmount it, only that it reduces the speed. For instance, your capability to react quickly, it does reduce it. Community relations is a key part of it. It's a challenge. There's no how you can clearly address oil theft in the Niger Delta without getting the community on side. So I think the level of community engagement will need to be scaled up. And like he said, it's not just community engagement, also works two ways. You engage to get the buy-in, but they should also see more. They are seeing, maybe see more of the benefits of these resources. The government have done a lot. NDDC is there, 13% reservation is there. We need to see those things translate to rural development, translate to socio-economic developments in the Niger Delta. That will also help the armed forces because now you have the community on side. They can easily report information. They can easily tell you what is happening. They can actually ward away people who want to destroy pipelines in their domain. So we want to see more of community engagement. Again, another challenge we can talk about is in terms of two platforms to be able to do these tasks. I agree that no armed forces anywhere in the world gets everything you need. It's not possible, but we can always appreciate much more capability in terms of drone to increase ISR, because we believe that we need to have a clear view of the pipelines 24/7. To be able to do that, you need night fighting capabilities, you need drones to be able to support such operations. And also there's also technologies, even long-range cameras. In the Northeast, it was extensively used, and that was some of the success factors, some of the determinants that aided our success. So we need to see some of these capabilities deployed in the Niger Delta. Of course, they all cost money, but we believe that with the government support, we'll be able to get much more capabilities to enable us to do the jobs.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. The conversation continues. Let's quickly take this break now. Stay with us.
Of in discussing the crude oil theft phenomenon. Well, just before we went on break, we had the general telling us about some of the operational challenges or areas of enhancement that might be required. For now, let me get to CSC Babawale, who has joined us via Zoom, to tell us about the nature of synergy that you have with other security agencies in the Niger Delta. I mean, in terms of real synergy, not the kind of synergy that caters for the individuals.
Thank you very much. You have been very, very cordial. And, you know, security is a collective responsibility. Just one security agent can't do it alone. I remember some few months ago in Bayelsa, where we arrested a vessel suspected to have been involved in oil theft of the sea in Beneti. So this operation was in conjunction with the Tantita Security Service Nigeria Limited. So, and the vessel was arrested with about 119 metric tons of crude oil already loaded. And, you know, the beauty of it is that we're able to arrest 12 and 11 community members. This is what we're about synergy. So if not that, you know, we're working together, this operation would have been successful. So we have a cordial relationship, all sister agencies. Hello. So I'm talking about the Nigerian police, the Nigerian army, and every security operative. We're working together about crude oil theft in Nigeria. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, CSC Babawale Afolabi. Let's get back in the studio now. Majida Dahiru, I'd like to find out from you as we begin to round up this conversation. You have said the security operatives are doing so much, and yes, some thieves are being caught here and there. What would you want? And then Major General mentioned the fact that the penalties are, you know, very weak, and maybe that's why they are being encouraged, you know, to continue with the trade and all of that. So what would you recommend, you know, that the government does in terms of dealing with those who are involved in this crime?
Oil theft should be declared a treasonable offense that should be punishable by, if not death, but life imprisonment. And we need to create special courts to try expeditiously offenders in this regard. It's very important, because if you know what oil theft has done to Nigeria, between 2009 and 2020, Nigeria lost over 600 million barrels of crude oil to oil thieves. The value of that loss was put at about $45 billion by native. Imagine what $45 billion would have done for this country. And so, for a crime that has existential economic impact on the Nigerian state, I don't think it should be treated with kid gloves anymore. And so, if this is done, it will serve as a severe deterrent against this act, and it will now ease the job of the armed forces, the NMPs and other stakeholders in this regard. So I think we need to make more stringent laws against oil theft in Nigeria.
Now, the people at the National Assembly have continued to talk about this as well. But I'm surprised that no one has taken it up as a challenge to sponsor a bill to that effect. Who should do that now? Should it be the NMPC? Should it be the security agencies? Should it be an executive bill to say, look, let's make it stiffer, the penalties for those who engage in oil theft?
It should be an executive bill. Especially now that we have a president with the political will enough to give this marching order to the armed forces to say, put an end to oil theft. I think it will help that marching order if he sends an executive bill to the National Assembly to the effect that this should make a treasonable offense with capital punishment as the consequence.
Yeah, I'd like to also, you know, put the same question to Patrick Angabo. You spoke earlier, you talked about lack of political will. Is it about just giving marching orders to the security operatives to go after these thieves when we know that the big thieves cannot be caught by the security operatives? What would you want to see done differently in dealing with this challenge?
Yeah, it's good again that our president is the chairman of ECOWAS Commission, and that he can use his power to be able to engage other countries that provides routes and support to some of all these ships that pass through their areas. That is one of the things that will help, because if all other countries will cooperate with Nigeria, then it will reduce. Then there will be free movement of these. But because of the benefits some of these countries get, he needs to be able to use his clout as an international, as a man who has experience, who has that will, goodwill to be able to get that. I also think that we're talking about development in the Niger Delta. It's part of the political will that has to be. He talked about getting the governors to work. and they need to work. My point here is that sometimes when policies are made, thank God that we have a man as the Chief of Defense Staff who are able to implement what the order given by the President. Some other agencies, are they carrying it out as it should be? You know, when you give marching order, how well are the people who are supposed to interpret it? Then talking about prosecution, there are so many people that have been arrested. What is happening with them? Who has the prosecutory powers to prosecute these people? That is the issue. The security forces, the armed forces do not have the power. We have either the EFCC or the Civil Defense Corps. What are the working together, the synergy with the judiciary to talk about even the little punishment or the consequences that comes with it? How well is it being meted out? You know, before we start talking about the increase in the punishment, there are so many that has not been done. When people know that there's consequences for their actions, then they'll be deterred from doing it. But when people believe that I can do this and find a way around it to get free or delay, then it is free. When they go to court, they are granted bail and they are out there again, going to do the same business, because the judiciary is also not doing what they should do on time as it should be.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick Abambo. Let me get back to General Onumajuro. You spoke about some operational inadequacies earlier. Do you have, I'm just wondering, do you have choppers, for instance, in the area? Because if you talk about not being able to react as quickly as you would have wanted to, I'm just thinking, I'm not a military person, but if you had a chopper above and then maybe you have, you know, some men, you have some boots on the ground, will that help?
Yes, we do have the Air Force. We have the Air Force. We have both fixed wing and rotary. Yes, they're involved.
Is it coordinated in such a way that real time, when you have, you know, boots on the ground, you have the Air Force, you have the Navy at the same time? Because if you have such synergy from both land, air, and sea, it shouldn't be such a big deal, really.
The synergy is there. Remember that the operations in the Niger Delta is under Operation Delta Safe. And the way it's organized, you have the component commands, the maritime, the land, and the air, and all work in synergy. What I'm saying is you can always benefit from additional resources. Not that the capabilities are not there. The capabilities are there. It's the capabilities that have gotten us to the level we are today.
Can be better.
Yes, but you cannot say no to additional capabilities. So the capabilities are there. The Air Force, you need to see some of the clips of the amount of work they are doing there. So the Air Force is on ground, and we have a lot of helicopters. We do have.
All right.
Even the Army just procured some helicopters about 3 or 6 months back. So we do have platforms.
Okay, so CRC Baba Wale, I hope you're there. If your connection is okay, I'd like you to also point out what the challenges are for the NSCDC and what you would want to see done differently, you know, by the government in solving this challenge.
We need tools to work with, most especially, you know, drones, in order to do surveillance, you know, and this will really help us. And at the same time, we need more personnel, you understand? So we need more personnel. So if we were able to recruit more, especially with other sister agencies as well. So these are part of the thing. And also we need to increase more of our engagement with the host communities. We need to, they need to supply us with information, you know, because these people, they were withholding things. If they can feed us with information, I'm very sure that all these will be a thing of the past. Yeah, but we notice that this will be hiding things because of the stipend. So if the host communities can come out to tell us what's going on, we'll be able to fish out all these bad eggs and these oil thieves out there. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, CSC Babawala Falabi. As we round off the conversation now, I'm sure you've seen the report, Mr. Majid Adahiru. Some experts say that, you know, the the challenge of oil theft is, mostly the responsibility of government, inability to do the needful at the right time and all of that. So I want you to speak to government now. Of course, yes, we know that the president has, asked the security operatives to go do the needful. You have also talked about what should be done as regards the law. But outside that, holistically now, what can the NNPCL do? What can the government do on its own part? And of course, what can the leaders in these communities also do to deal with this challenge?
On the part of the federal government, it is to enhance the capabilities of the armed forces and other security agencies to be able to sustain what they are doing and improve upon what they are already doing in the Niger Delta within the larger framework of national security. So we need to see more investment in platforms and equipment. And if you ask me, welfare of officers and men of the armed forces and other sister security agencies too, so that they can be well motivated to do their job. Now, on the part of the state government, again, I go back to the issue of good governance. Governors of the Niger Delta must begin to deliver good governance in tangible terms. The people in these communities must begin to see the benefit of their God-given hydrocarbon endowment that actually fits the nation. Until such a time comes, you cannot get information from the communities, you cannot get their cooperation. And so we need to put this charge out there. And the president also will have to call these governors through the National Economic Council to say, look, one of the ways we think we can increase the wealth of this nation is for you people to give back to the people what has been given to you, to them, through the monthly allocation account by way of 13% derivation. The president must speak to these issues and charge them with the responsibility of playing their part to safeguard our oil and gas assets, national assets. It's important. On the part of the NNPC, they have done quite well because the acquisition of that capability to monitor, to carry out 24-hour surveillance across the entire network of pipelines in this country is quite commendable. So I'm sure that what they need to do more is more investment in this regard to make sure that they acquire high capabilities, to update their technological capabilities to meet up with emerging challenges and threats from this syndicate of criminals, and to continue the collaboration with the armed forces in every way, without any restriction, without any limitations, so that together they can find a lasting solution to this problem. So otherwise, I don't think we need comprehensive good governance within the framework of ensuring national security of the entire Nigerian space, where every inch of the 920 plus 1,000 square kilometers is secured adequately by the state. It has to be a responsibility that must be taken on by the state.
All right, just before
what about community leaders? You didn't speak to community leaders because,
the truth is, community leaders are not security agencies. Community leaders do not have the capability to prevent oil theft, even if they do not want it. That's what I'm saying. Good governance will mitigate the tendency of members of the host community to either cooperate or engage in these nefarious activities. It will mitigate it. It cannot stamp out criminals entirely, but at least there will be a paradigm shift in their focus of legitimacy from non-state actors that are militants to the state. But the only way to achieve that is to give back to the community that which they deserve: quality education, quality health care, quality rural infrastructure, that will generally develop their socioeconomic lives. That's the magic.
All right. Now, because you spoke about how much the NNPC has done at the moment, and Patrick Abambo has continued to express concern about the NNPC not being transparent enough, how do you think that the NNPC can be checked to ensure transparency and lift the veil on what seems like opacity?
For me, when we talk about opacity, you must understand that the NNPC is Nigeria's national oil company. NNPC is the entity that bakes the cake, the national cake that we all share every
So
month.
they shouldn't be transparent?
No, what I'm saying is the nature of NNPC as an oil, as a national oil company makes it tied to the control of the political leadership of Nigeria. So, however you want NNPC to become, you must direct that demand to the president and commander-in-chief, who incidentally is also the petroleum minister of Nigeria. So NNPC on its own is not a self-autonomous entity. it's under the control of the federal government. The federal government owns NNPC, and by extension, the Nigerian people. So the operations of NNPC is also streamlined and subject to national security as dictated by the presidency and the presidency of this country.
What I'm asking is this. How do you think that besides NNPC telling us that we have 1 barrel per day, we have 2 barrels per day, we have 3 barrels per day, is how do we devise a strategy to also be able for some other, authority, some other entities to be able to say, okay, NNPC said it's 3 barrels. Yes, I can see it is 3 barrels truly.
There are a number of entities, CSOs, that have the capabilities.
And access?
Of course. That's not it. NNPC itself does not really drill out of the oil. The IOCs do more of the drilling, more of the production. So the IOCs have their information. OPEC have their information. The Ministry of Petroleum have their information. NAITI have their data about the extractive industry in Nigeria.
As given them by the NNPC?
No. They have independent tools of verifying. Because NNPC itself is not the custodian of oil production in Nigeria. That is a good thing. They do it in collaboration with other operating entities, the IOCs on one hand and the indigenous operators. So all you need to do is to go to the indigenous operators and say, what did you produce this month? Go to the IOCs and say, can we see the data of what you produced this month, if you are interested. But I think there's an impression that people have about the complicity of NNPC in oil theft and why this question keeps coming up. And I say it simply. If NNPC or its officials are complicit in oil theft, Nigeria will not hear of the phenomenon of oil theft at all, because NNPC will simply underdeclare having stolen the others. The fact that NNPC is at the forefront of the campaign and advocacy against oil theft is just common sense. It tells you that, look, it's affecting them, it's affecting their revenues.
All right.
But sometimes, sometimes when something is stolen and then you raise alarm, it's just so that they don't look your way.
The level of investment that NNPC has done to contain oil theft, they will not need to go to that extent, because you won't even know that it is oil theft.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Let's take the last 2 minutes to get closing remarks from Patrick Abambo.
Yeah, I've taken time to study other national oil producing countries in other companies in other countries.
Aramco, for instance.
Regulatory, and I've seen that there are alternative ways of finding out, and we're not just going to depend on what we are told by these people. All of us are here when somebody who is a big major player there talked about that the government had given order for an NPC to cooperate, give some crude oil to them, but they are not selling and all that. So there are a lot of issues that needs to be done, and these are the things I'm talking about. Transparency. We'll talk about transparency in Nigeria, and that has to be done. We cannot say yes, they have done this. They are trying their best as much as they can, but I think they should do more. They should do more better than is being done, and the president is giving them that support for them to be able to do better than they are doing. They don't have any reason not to be able to cooperate with security agencies. Mine is that allow the security agencies that have been approved and been trained to also give us the figures physically there, because it's only what you tell them that they can tell us.
Tell us. All right, thank you, Patrick Agambu. Major General Emeka Onumajiro, your last words as we round up this conversation.
I think my last word is to reconfirm that the armed forces remains committed and ready to execute Mr. President's charge to eradicate illegal oil bunkering, crude oil theft, refinery in the Niger Delta. So we are committed to that task. We've made appreciable progress. I will continue to make sure that we work towards ensuring that the extent of the mandate is fully executed. We'll only ask for support of Nigerians, support of the communities, to make sure that this job is done and done in good time. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. The way you're smiling right here in the studio, is that how you smile when you're in the Niger Delta? I doubt. I doubt that. All right, CSC Babawale Afolabi, your last words as we round up the conversation. All right, looks like I would not have that connection. So thank you very much, Majid. All right, CSC Babawale, your last words
in
as
1
we
minute,
go.
please.
All right, connection problem. We hope that the pipeline, in this connection between us and Babawale is not being vandalized. Thank you very much, Major General Emeka Onumajuru, Chief of Training and Operations and Training, Defense Headquarters. Thank you so much for being our guest. And of course, we wish you the very best, you and the team, on the field, making sure that our resources are safe. Thank you. Majid Dahiru, Public Affairs Analyst and newspaper columnist, we appreciate you for your insights on the program. And of course, Patrick Agambu, Public Safety and Security Expert. It was a pleasure to have you on the program. We also appreciate CSC Babawale Afolabi, National Public Relations Officer, and SCDC National Headquarters for joining us for the conversation. So that's Good Morning, Nigeria, this Tuesday. Thank you for watching. I'm Ian Ray John.
And I'm Victor, so we'll see you again tomorrow.